All right, Rick, we're live on video, going on live on audio.
Awesome.
All right, good day, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Live the Fuel show. So this evening, as I'm recording this, we are bringing on a new guest co-host. And this is a gentleman that I've actually been following for a little while, and he got referred to me from one of our regular guest co-host. She's not really a guest anymore, I guess. She's really just a regular co-host. Shout out to Dr. Megan Cannon, sports psychologist. She's like, hey, you got to get Rick on the show. So, ladies and gentlemen, he's a writer. He's a speaker. He's a performance coach. And as an ex-special, I don't like ex, let me edit this. As a former special operations veteran and ultra-endurance athlete, he crafts content to help lead people through adversity and into a life of meaning. Well, I think we've hit on this a few times in this show. So you can hear his ideas on his podcast. That's right, fellow podcaster, LionHeart Radio, which airs Monday through Friday, or by picking up a copy of his debut book, Burn Your Couch, which can be found at burnyourcouch.com. So without further ado, Rick Alexander, sir, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm going to be honest. You probably did my bio much more justice than I've ever heard anybody else do it. I don't know if it's the voice or the inflection, but you killed it.
Well, you know what it is? I had to pause on the X. I'm actually not going to take credit for that. A friend of mine is a California firefighter. So he's not wildland, but he's a lieutenant high up in Cal Fire. And obviously all the tragedies going on out there with the wildfire and everything else, and me having my past connectivity to wildfire, we were at a big entrepreneurial mindset conference that I love go to every year called Thrive, Make Money Matter. And he called me out because he overheard me talking to somebody, and I said, ex-hotshot firefighter. And he's like, no, dude. He's like, once you're a firefighter, you're always a firefighter. He's like, it's former. You know, he's like, this same thing goes for police, first responders, military, et cetera. I was like, whoa, it just flipped my brain. So I thought I'd on the fly adapt that and see what you thought.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think I probably will go back in and edit. As you said it, I was like, God, I should have edited that.
I never would have thought about it unless he brought it up. So, this is why I love like connecting with new people. This is why I love podcasting too. Cause like all of a sudden, either before a show or after show, or in this case at a conference, I got a guy who just comes from the fellow fire world. And this guy's been a career guy for like 20 years. And he calls me out. He's like, don't you dare call yourself an ex. He's like, you serve, man. He's like, you put yourself and your life on the line of duty for, your fellow mankind. So he's like, own that. And I was like, yes, sir. I will no longer say ex again.
Right. No, I like that perspective. I like it a lot. It's interesting to me, because I've transitioned out of the military and I've realized that life is really just essentially a long list of transitions and changes. But I'm really interested in how you sort of mold your identity going forward, because I think one of the propensities that people do is when they come from something that demands a lot of them, like fire, military, police, and then they go to do something else, they have trouble letting that part of their identity kind of take the back seat. And then so that whatever they're doing forward can take the front seat. And so I'm always really interested in that as well, like what that looks like going forward.
I'm glad you're bringing that up, because as soon as you said it, I kind of chuckled inside of my head just now, because I remember, once I stepped out of that role, it was only a 2-year adventure, right? But it changed my life. And I mean, you do it as an extreme position like that. Like nobody knew what a hotshot wildland firefighter was. I didn't even know it, to the point where now I'm literally writing a book about it. So it's funny, you're an author and I'm becoming an author. And I remember now, when I moved into Colorado, that's all I ever talked about. Even when I moved back here to the East Coast, it was like it was such a life-changing component that I didn't want to let it go. And to your point, I've admitted this multiple times on the show. It's like it got to the point where I was like, are you allowing yourself to move past that? Is it holding you back? It'll always be a part of my identity, but do I always have to lead with it, right? So it's interesting you're bringing that up today.
Yeah. It's interesting, because if you let the wrong thing get in the driver's seat when you're going through your life, it's going to make you miserable. And so, a lot of times I see it, like veterans they're the person that wants to get out of the military, and then they get out and then they become this like really unhappy version of who they used to be, and all they talk about is going back in, and it sucks. Like it's really a bummer to see friends like that. And I think a lot of that is because they're not allowing the next evolution of who they are to step into what they want to do next.
You know, it goes back to that classic quote, like, how are you supposed to move forward if you're always living behind, or something like that? It's one of these, there's so many different manifestations of that quote, but it is so true. I know a lot of veterans because of my love of CrossFit. Like, I found CrossFit thanks to while I'm firefighting. Actually, I'm wearing my buddy's gym shirt right now, SYR, here in Allentown. And Megan does a WOD and Learns. She just did one this Saturday where she comes out, we do a workout, and then she does a presentation on sports psychology and mindset work and everything else. So full circle on that. But the point is, like, in the CrossFit world, there's a lot of former military, even still active military. It's a part of that lifestyle. But to your point, I've had numerous conversations with former military talking about how it was such a life-changing component, or so hard ingrained into their life, that they don't want to move on per se, or they feel stuck. And that's it's interesting how you brought up they want to go back, right? Mm-hmm. Well, why do you? A lot of them take it as a badge of honor, is what I hear anyway. Is what I'm hearing. So I'm interested in you've actually served, you can speak to this, but it's like, why do you have to go back? Like, you served, you have that honor and that respect. It's okay. You can move on and start a whole new chapter, right?
Yeah. And I think that there's a couple things at play there. So this is good advice, I think, for anybody that's transitioning out of anything in life is, you have to take the mentality of being okay with being an amateur. Like, because you have to start over. You have to be a beginner again. Like, I'm not, especially, so I made the decision that I'm not going to write about my military career going forward, but I am going to be a writer.
Interesting.
That puts me way back at the bottom. So, like, I'm not going to, you know what I mean? Like, I could write a book about my last deployment, and I've had book offers for this and do much better, but I've decided, like, no, I'm going to commit to the craft. I'm going to commit to being an amateur. I'm going to do the things that I have to do to work my way up. Right. And I think what people don't realize is, like, you can look forward without minimizing your past. And I think people get afraid. They get afraid to let that part of them go. But just because it's not your focus anymore and it's not what you lead with doesn't mean it had any less impact on your life. It still crafted me. I couldn't be any more proud. But looking forward, it's not the thing. I can't spend time looking backwards, or I'll never get where I'm trying to go.
I love this because there's probably former military or active military listening to this show as well. Hopefully fire, police, first responder. I like to give back to them as well. But this does go to anybody. I mean, when you have a career change, when you have a relationship change, when you reload, there's three of the most, I studied psychology when I went back to school before firefighting. And I remember this, there's the 2 to 3 of the most top psychologically strenuous things that you can go through in your life. One is death in the family, right? So you lose a loved one. 2, marriage.
Okay.
At all levels. And 3, relocation. So then it's funny because I can't tell you how many times I've met and I've been friends with military, and it's like, okay, these dudes are like, okay, they're relocating to a new base or a new assignment. Then they meet somebody. So you're opening up matters of the heart plus matters of the career. Then let's tag in the relocation. And then hopefully you don't lose a friend or fellow, military member along that life cycle, right? So there's already a lot of stress happening there.
Oh, for sure.
But this does carry over into the regular everyday. Somebody could be in a corporate job and your company's moving you to the other side of the country. And now you have relocation. Hopefully the relationship survives that, or maybe you're single. But now you move to another part of the country. You're starting a whole new life over there. You're starting a whole new job. You're starting a whole new role. You're starting a whole new, possibly future relationship in dating and romance and everything else. All stressful variables. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I can't speak to it cognitively, but experientially, I can tell you, from my experience, what matters is if you go to these things on your own volition. The more you accept this change and go toward it yourself, the less you feel victimized by the change and the circumstances and the life that's around you. So, I really spend a lot of time. I mean, I live in a couple of those. I'm always pseudo changing jobs because I always have new projects, and I'm in Australia right now, and I'm going to be in California, and then I'm moving to Colorado in January. And I understand that life isn't for everybody, but just what I found, the more subtle ways you can build this discomfort and change into your life and go toward it yourself, the less you feel like it's something that's happening to you.
So that's why I knew you'd never get along, because back when I made the decision to go do fire, and this will be in the book. Just it's about, the book is not actually about necessarily firefighting. It's kind of like, it's funny how you talked about that just now with the military. It's about the metamorphosis, the transformation, and the life lessons learned, because I want to see people take this hotshot experience that I went through and what I tell in the book and apply it like we're talking about now, right? Apply it to your professional space, your romantic space, whatever. It's like, it's about this podcast just aired me today. And it's called Your Superior Self, and he's down in Maryland. And one of the taglines he put in the title was, because I said it multiple times in the show, is embracing the suck. And this was something that we used all the time when firefighting. It's like, dude, just got to embrace the suck, bro, or else you're not going to get through the day. You're not going to get through the week. You're not going to get through the assignment. And I don't know if you guys ever used that in the military. I'm sure you did, or a variation of it.
Yeah, or variations of it. Yeah. Well, yeah, right. That's one of the things I love about, so that's what's cool about the opportunity to read a book. I don't think enough people think about this, or a podcast. Like, you went through this 2-year experience that was by all means very demanding and took all of you, I'm sure. And in that process, you learned all of these lessons, and you happen to be somebody that's like willing to synthesize that lesson. So if I'm corporate whoever, and I'm trying to go to lead the next sales meeting, I get to like literally live through you, who went through 2 years of suck in order for these lessons that have been forged in sweat and hard work and all of the things that comes with that. And then I get to download that in 45 minutes or a couple hours, and then try to pull away from it what I can and apply it to my own life. So that's like just to that point. That's what I like about this format. What I like about creating content in general is you get this opportunity to take somebody else's really hard work and apply it to your life.
Yeah, you're reinforcing everything that I teach, because I was in the corporate space before, then left it all after I made myself go back to school, do the BS in marketing, study psychology on nights and weekends as an adult student, then bow out of all of it and say, you know what, I need more risk. I got to go do this. And all my friends and colleagues are like, what are you thinking? You're making more money than your friends now without a degree. Now you finish your degree, so your pedigree is looking better, blah, blah, blah. My LinkedIn profile looked more consistent, whatever. And I was like, but dude, I was 31, I was 32. Actually, when I made these decisions, it was probably 28, 29, going into my 30s. And I was like, all right, let's bang this degree out. And then I negotiated my own dismissal from the company. I was like, listen, I need you to fire me so I can get unemployment just until my fire career starts. I negotiated my own dismissal. And my boss was like, I'm sorry, what? And I was number 2 sales guy on the team, which was hilarious. Anyway, but I set my goals, and this is what I wanted to do. And I was willing to embrace the risks. Like, it excited me. And I was like, oh dude, I literally get my house. I had a 2,000 square foot townhouse. And then I had it was used, but I had an Audi A4. And then I got rid of all of it. And then I got a $3,000 Subaru Outback wagon and reduced my life to fit in that car, and then moved to Arizona and lived on a compound in the mountains of Arizona. Like, it's, again, like you're saying, you're moving to Colorado. I moved to Colorado, so these are those risks that we need to break those walls down and not make them so hard to climb. What do you say?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love that, because I had a Mercedes in a house last year, and everything's shoved into a Subaru right now. So
all right. That's what I'm talking about.
But you know what it is you had this inkling to do this thing, and a lot of people, in fact, everybody has this, right? You could call it your call to adventure. You could call it whatever you want. But if you would have ignored that and you would have decided to go the conventional route because that's what everybody around you wanted, you would be miserable in 5 years. Maybe if you'd have stayed on that road 10 years, like that's the thing that an existential crisis is made of, right? You literally ignore your call to adventure and you continue to do the things that you think you're supposed to do, or you have all these obligations that are essentially self-imposed, right? Because you had the ability to shove all your stuff in a Subaru, but we really build up walls in our mind about what we have to do. And I think over a long period of time, if we don't go toward it because of the fact that it's uncomfortable, or we feel obligated or responsible or whatever that is, we're going to find ourselves pretty far from who we actually want to be down the road.
Or what we could have been. I mean, there's that could be factor that I think a lot of people, you're following the norm. And what people don't understand is that, and I didn't understand until I went through it, which was like, okay, well, who's to say what the norm is, right? There's millions of people on this planet. There's hundreds, if not thousands of dialects, lifestyles, ethnicities, like different upbringings, everything. So heck, the United States of America is like the melting pot times 10. So just in this country, there's so many variables to consider how you want to live. So why not try them, right? Like, just try it. You might not like it. Great. Now you can check it off. All right, tried it, didn't like it. Like firefighting. I did like it. I realized at the end of the 2 years, it's like, it didn't click. It didn't say, I don't see myself doing this the rest of my life. I know that I'm capable of doing more and I want to do more. I'm not saying that wildland firefighters aren't doing a lot. Trust me. You watch the news, what happened in California this year, all 3 of those fires the past 2 months. There's plenty to be done. It's just, I just didn't click with it anymore. I said, I did it. I earned my belt buckle. I got it up there on the wall and I was like, all right, I'm ready to move on. Let's try a new chapter. Let's take another risk. I moved to Colorado, right? All these things. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I just knew that I needed to change the chapter. It was time to move on. So,
and I think because you're moving forward, because you're forward looking at least, and you're being, very self-aware and honest with yourself. Like, I'm ready to do something else. It kind of keeps you above the turbulence. It keeps you above the change and the shifting, and it allows you to sort of navigate life with a little bit more ease. At least that's what I found. As long as I'm going to these things, by my own accord, then it's a little bit easier to manage all.
Yeah, but here's my question for you then. So does it scare you to think that what if I don't keep doing these shifts, right? Because that was part of I realized that now as you and I were talking, like when I had the opportunity to come back to the East Coast to help a friend of mine grow her new company, things weren't going that well in Colorado. Like the job market was brutal. There's just so many people. I wasn't entrepreneurial back then. I wasn't building stuff in online space. I hadn't really started crushing, ebooks and on Audible, for example, and Amazon wasn't that big yet. So Audible wasn't that big yet. Was barely getting into podcasts. Like obviously fast forward, a lot has changed. Right. So it scared me coming back. I felt like I was stepping backwards, not stepping forwards. And I'm just wondering, like, obviously you about to go from Australia to Colorado. Have you ever thought down the road, like, okay, what if I'm going to air quote this, settle down or settle into a more consistent lifestyle?
I would say that my unique fear is what if I never do? That's more of
interesting.
Yeah. Okay. We're all kind of contending with our own things, but I love the process. Like I'm growth minded. And what's interesting is a lot of people, because entrepreneurship is big now and it's a buzzword to be growth minded. Like everybody's like, oh, I'm in it for the growth. And really though, if you're really growth minded, like that kind of a lifestyle is rough. And I don't wish it on anybody because it means you got to leave relationships and you got to leave jobs and you got to leave states. And if you're going to honor the process of what growth really requires, that means that you are going to grow away from certain things that are really comfortable and that you might enjoy. And so you have to, I don't know. So I think my biggest fear is I'm so growth minded and I'm so self-aware that I love the process of building and doing new things that I'll never actually want to stay anywhere.
Yeah, it's interesting because like for the first time in my life now, I'm 41. I'm engaged to be married in March of 2019. And that scared me. But I was like, oh, well, the cool thing is I met a girl though that doesn't want kids. I don't want kids. We took care of that snippety snip right away. She even paid for it. She's like, yeah, she's like, let's do that now. I didn't even put a ring on it. I was like, okay, there's a commitment. But the cool thing is like, she's a hardcore skier like I am. We both rock climb. We both CrossFit. Like she's got her own veterinary business. So we're both entrepreneurs. So it was interesting. I was like, oh, if I allowed myself to take this different risk than I'm used to, right? I think I was more worried about these unnecessary what ifs. And to what you and I are talking about right now, it's like, well, I didn't know until I put myself through it. And I at least would open myself up to it. But let me tell you, this will be in the book too. Like I have a chapter in there about, I'm not the love doctor, but she broke up with my ass. I mean, she's like, my walls were up so high from Colorado life and the fire life. Like I wasn't willing to let anybody in. I still wasn't embracing back living in Pennsylvania, like all this stuff. It was all this crap. And the reason why I went back after her and tried to recover, start a new relationship with her because that was essential. You can't reopen the wound, right? Start anew. Was I was willing to get vulnerable is a key word, take the risk, let her in, and say, well, what if none of that stupid crap happens and all these amazing things happen? But if you can't just automatically assume and look into the future and say, well, if I got into a serious relationship, all of these bad things are going to happen. Like I'm going to be rooted and blah, blah, blah. Now, like, dude, we're planning our wedding for Banff, Canada. Heli skiing.
Oh, yeah. Hell yes. Okay.
I was like, this would not have been on my docket a couple of years ago. I was like, she's like, so what do you think about heli skiing for our wedding? And I'm like, I love you.
Who are you? Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's like,
I think that's incredible. But I think that it's entirely possible to find people that you're going to grow with. It's just way harder. That's all.
Oh, it's definitely harder. Definitely harder.
So you're just not going to be, a lot of people, they don't honor that growth, and they grow away from the person they're with or the job they're in, and they let it make them miserable because they're not willing to do what they need to do to step away from it. And that's, I think, probably a reason for a lot of quiet desperation in this world, because people are growing and they are changing. And, something to think about is when you grow away from, when you level up, and, it's another buzzword, like, when you outgrow people, that's another thing people are always talking about, like, got to leave the squad. And it's like, that doesn't make you better than them. That makes you different. And I think that that's something you need to keep in mind, because you're going to be not a great human being if you don't keep that in mind. But it's entirely
bringing that up, because let's look at the people that I think we're more worried about what other people are thinking or going to say. And it's like, listen, I'm not trying to say I don't want to be a friend with you anymore. It's just that you're not on my growth path of my inner circle. Right. So like, we can still catch up from time to time if you want, but like, dude, I'm on a mission. And if you're not going to be somewhat in alignment with that, I'm sorry, you're not going to grow my company. You're not going to grow my future, my crazy wedding goals, whatever. Like, there's people that I just don't reach out to anymore, because I realized also I was the one holding on to those friendships or those inner circles. It's like, I was actually putting more work in than they were to stay in touch with me. So it's like, wait a minute, isn't that a two-way street? And I think that's also a fear factor you're bringing up right now. A lot of people are afraid to step on people the wrong way and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, if they're meant to be in your life and they truly care about you, they should want you to kick ass and take names and crush it and level up, as you're saying, or as my little mug that I had made, fuel up, right? Like, we're trying to grow. That's the point of podcasting and book writing and everything else. Like, let's put the right content out there to help people grow, not feel bad about it, not feel guilty about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, one of the mindset shifts for me that was a literal life changer was focusing on what you do want and what you don't want. So saying, and if you do this, it allows you to grow where you need to grow and not be a jerk in the process, right? So like, sometimes people are like, just because you're outgrowing a friend group or focusing more on writing or your business or whatever it is you're doing, you don't need to tell them like, I'm outgrowing you, bro. Like, you just focus on what you do want. Focus on what you're trying to do. Push the intellectual frontiers, push the physical frontiers, do your thing. But when you focus on what you do want versus what you don't want, it's a much different internal conversation as well. And that's something that's really changed my life. So, I don't want to go broke is much different than I want to make six figures this year, right? Because it shifts you from being problem-oriented to solution-oriented. Because if you're like, I want to make six figures this year, now you got to figure out a reason why. But if you spend all your time focused on like, well, I don't want to put out a book that nobody reads. It's like, well, nobody does. So focus on what you do want. It's
you can't assume that nobody's going to read it. If you're already assuming that, you're already basically putting the nail in the coffin, so to speak, right? Like,
but I think that negation though is when people are, to take the conversation full circle, when people are looking to make a change in their life, a change in career or whatever relationship, whatever it is, the reason they don't is because they focus on everything that they don't want. They focus on what could go wrong. And that's like one of the, inconvenient truth about the future that you're scared of. Like, it holds everything that you're scared of. It also holds everything that your life has a possibility to be.
No, I like that, because like my piece of art behind me there in the video, right? Dream, plan, do. Everything you're saying right now, I want to also get some screen sharing in here too, because what you're hitting on right now, just when I look at one of your sites, for example, ladies and gentlemen, again, LionHeart Radio is his podcast, but he also has his own site for his name, rickalexander.com. And I want to show this one first because that little tagline right there of like just the keyword clarity. Like, so you have a Clarity Academy, which is linked on this site. Add meaning to your ambition. Is that some of the content that you really try and get into with your academy that you work with people on?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people in this life are going through life without really knowing who they really are and what they really want. And a lot of that is because they have all of these, like we talked about, preconceived notions and ideas. And, cognitive researchers believe that you don't know about 95% of what goes on in your own brain.
Very true.
Right. And so we have to figure out a way to start acting by our own accord if we want our life to go the way that we actually want it to go. The problem is most people don't know what it is they actually do want. And so that Clarity Academy that I started is really to help people figure out who they really want to be and what they really want. And as a byproduct of that, you'll find that your life does start to take on a whole new meaning.
Interesting. And so clearly from your background, you're like me, dude. I'm an endurance athlete. I love endurance sports, but I noticed like right off the bat, like you start here, you give them two options. Very simple. You're either looking for performance coaching or you're looking for endurance coaching. So what made you pick those two areas just to say, you know what, is that just because your mindset, man? Like that's where you come from, or what made you just narrow down those two little sectors?
Yeah, no, because I feel like everybody, if you really know who you are, you're going to work within your unique genius. And that for me is like, I spend all of my free time. If I weren't coaching, if I didn't have clients, if this weren't my business, I would still be watching performance psychology lectures at night. Like I'm a nerd. I would still be running ultra marathons. Like these are the things that I feel called to do. And so, and that's another thing too. A lot of us do activities that drain us. And at the end of, I've started businesses where I hustle and work and we're making money and I'm dead at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If I write about performance for an entire day and I don't get one piece of validation, writing is as you know, is a process where there's not a lot of validation. You're just you in a Word doc. But I'll do that all day for 8 hours and I'll leave with like energy and ideas and ready for what's next. And so that's like the difference when you really find what it is you want to be doing and you realize you would be doing those things regardless of the money involved. It's the biggest performance hack in the world that nobody pays attention to. Like if you work within what you really want, motivation, discipline, all these things come as a byproduct.
I completely agree with you because it's funny because like recently, this has happened a couple of times over the past few years, but I'm a big advocate for the CrossFit space or whatever, form of fitness you care about, right? I used to teach spinning for 5 to 6 years. I've been a USSA ski race coach over the years. Like these are all I've always had fitness ingrained into my life. And I usually end up making my way go into a leadership role. It's just who I am. I love teaching. I love coaching. Mm-hmm. I mean, for example, I love CrossFit so much. I'm a CFL1 trainer. I mean, I've actually held regular classes. Now I'm just kind of like, if I have the free time and I'm local and my friends who own the different gyms around me, like need my help. Yeah. I told them, let me know and I'll drop in and coach a class for you. I don't do it on a regular basis. But recently I've been approached to actually become an owner of a couple different facilities. And I was like, I'm honored that you see me as a valuable, leader and influencer in your community, but I'm not interested. Like I've got this thing about brick and mortar businesses and I'm just against them. Like I'm happy to help them. Hell, I'm a marketer, right? I'm a branding guy. I'm not against the business. It's just for me personally, I don't want that. I love the online space. I love being able to pick up my laptop, go to a Starbucks in Denver, Colorado, and I can go run whatever I'm doing for my clients. I need the location freedom because that's my master plan for the timeline. I need a virtual business. I don't want to be anchored by a physical brick and mortar business. And that's my master plan with my fiance. I want to help her grow her veterinary business to the point where her team of doctors can run the physical business. She's realized in the past year, she loves much more of the wellness because she's also a chiropractor for animals. So like, wait, she's a horse vet. And I'm like, listen, you work on race horses and you know how to chiropractically adjust a horse's jaw and a spine and all this stuff. I was like, we should build you into like some type of online brand. And in the beginning, you're not going to get clients, right? Let's be real. You're growing an online brand. It's going to take a little while to build some existence. But then when you're ready, when we're skiing in Colorado and you want to pick up some side hustle business while you're out there, a local farm finds out that you're out there. Like, hey, that's Dr. Kristen from online. Like, let's bring her in and do a training session for our clients. And then now you've just monetized your ski vacation, right? Like these are the things that I'm working on with her.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the master plan for us, is that I want us both to be able to pick up and go and do anything. So I thought I'd share that with you, because I'm sure this is part of you. I mean, you're in Australia and everything else right now. So like, I want to make sure people hearing this know that not everybody today can just pick up and go to Australia. You had to put certain things in place to get yourself to where you are, correct?
Oh, very much so. I mean, this is years of making to build this lifestyle.
Wait,
and
you didn't turn us around in weeks?
it's like the guy that works 10 years every single day and then has a hit and then is an overnight success.
Oh yeah.
Just that was 10 years in the making. But you know what you alluded to there at the beginning that's really interesting to me? Because you knew what you want, you were able to say no to a good opportunity. And
Sure.
Almost everybody has so much trouble saying no because they don't really have clarity around what they do want. And because of that, they'll, even if they do say no, then they'll spend the next 10 minutes like backpedaling and word vomit and trying to like justify why nobody can just say no and stand on a no because they have a value or a principle or a reason. And it's because so many of us are running around like doing what we should do and doing what people tell us to do that we don't take the time to think like, that might be a good opportunity, but not for me.
Yeah.
And sorry, keep going.
No, I'm listening. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I just think that, a lot of people, they say yes to so many things and you just, we're in a culture of doers. And so you just keep doing and you keep doing and the path just keeps getting further and further away from where you really want to be. And it was paved with good opportunities the whole entire way.
I love the fact you brought up another important thing. We're firing, man. This is a good session today. The whole keep saying yes. So, I mean, there's lots of different speakers out there and people like Gary Vaynerchuk and all these influencers. And a lot of people go, you got to hustle. Just keep saying yes. And one of those yeses will work. Well, I actually like the fact you brought that up because you can only say yes to so many things. And it's not one of those classic quotes like everything you say yes to means just one less thing you can't say yes to. That type of slogan. The point is like you keep saying yes. Number one, you're diluting your focus. You're diluting your ability to crush it because you can't crush it on 15 different projects at the same time. Like I realized that with my consulting, I only have a few clients. Like it's like I can say I literally have less than 5 clients, my primary clients. Now here and there, people want to do a one-off coaching session or a branding session here and there. It's fine. But as far as retained clients or retained hours being billed, I actually really out of the 5, it's really 3 that I'm just hardcore focused on because right now in my stage of my business, I don't want to build a virtual team to that scale yet. And I don't want to deal with all this noise because that's what I want. Everybody's like, well, you still have a single point of failure. It's you. I'm like, nah, not really. I got VAs, I got software, I got things automated. You'd be surprised how much I can unplug. So, but to your point here, that full circle is knowing what to say yes for and what to say no to is huge. It's huge if you're going to try and start crushing it. I learned that from one of my mentors. So,
yeah, I mean, this motivation culture of hustle, grind, that being the answer is garbage. Like people, you need to protect your energy. I mean, does it take hustle? Of course it does. But if that's the God you worship, you are going to end up somewhere miserable and burnt out and exhausted, and you're going to hate what you're doing. Because I've literally gone down that road of hustle being the end and not the means, and that's where that leaves you. And you pulled up my website. If you go to endurance coaching right now, it says I'm not accepting anybody. If you go to performance coaching, it's like you can enroll in this academy, and that's it. Yeah,
so because you got these on lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million things I could do, but I have to protect my energy if I want to do the things I actually do well.
Okay.
And so, I mean, could I sell a million things on this website? Yeah, of course I could, but I'm just diluting quality and I'm doing it at the expense of my own energy. And there's almost nothing more important than that to me.
I agree with that. I mean, again, now to be fair, ladies and gentlemen, you could still crush it with LionHeart rad.io as in radio. So that's right. You don't have to use .coms all the time anymore, people. But you crushed on the podcast. So that's clearly, because let's be real, podcasting apparently takes a little time. Apparently we can't just slap out podcasts left and right. And it says there's no effort at all. There is some work involved, but My fiance tells me all the time, she's like, when are you going to monetize your show? And I'm like, I don't want to. She's just like, well, people like Joe Rogan have all these commercials. I'm like, yeah, and they drive me crazy. I don't, I hate it. It drives me nuts. Now, granted, as you grow your brand, technically I can say I have monetized my show because my second largest client I got because we met through podcasting. So if you want to connect the dots, I did monetize my show. I gained a client out of it.
Right. It's same with me.
Commercials.
Yeah, right. I mean, same with me. I mean, it's got to be authentic to you. And it's the biggest marketing tool that I have, like our listeners. I absolutely love our listeners, and they're very loyal, and they listen for a reason. So they buy the things that I do sell, and that's good enough for me. One of the things I really do, all the industries I'm in, I'm constantly listing all of the things I don't like about those industries so that I don't do them.
There you go.
Because our audience is big enough that if we wanted to monetize it, I could. And then I have to weigh that, okay, now I'm squeezing out a little bit more of an income stream for literally going against who I actually am and what I really want.
I love that.
And I'm not willing to do that.
Well, from a couple of your different episodes, so real quick for our listeners, so if they get this and they want to go check out your show, what would you sum up your primary theme of your show is? Because obviously I always get a nice little athletic vibe from it. Definitely the mindset vibe, right? Like mindset's huge. That's why I know Megan likes you as well. Like nowadays after, what do you got? 122 shows online. So
yeah, we actually have much more than that.
Oh yeah. That's what I'm just seeing here. So how would you sum up where your show is today? Like what is because let's be real, as we grow our shows, you probably have to admit it too, there's a metamorphosis.
Oh, for
happens.
And if there wasn't, I would stop doing the show.
Yeah.
So we started out, it was a side project for a supplement company that I had. And yeah. And so we had all CrossFit athletes that we sponsored, which is why we started the show. We're like, oh, this would be fun.
Yep.
And in that picture, we have other co-hosts. Like I started the show with 2 other people. And as the company grew, I realized I love creating content and I don't love selling supplements as much. And so I started focusing my energy. And then I grew differently than the other co-hosts. So now that's why I ended up taking the show over, because as they grew, they decided that wasn't, we all had to honor what we really wanted out of our life and out of the business. And so as it sort of morphed, the show that started out very much CrossFit had this metamorphosis to very much of the things that I'm into, and it reflects my lifestyle. And I would say that personal growth and lifestyle development is for sure my biggest thing. The reason we have so many athletes on there is because just like with you with fire, there's so many lessons you can learn from adversity. And so that's what I'm always trying to tool out. What I like about athletes specifically is that they're going to that place of adversity every single day. True. And so they're full of lessons if you can ask the right questions.
If you can get the feedback out of them.
Yes.
Right. I will say every so often you get that one challenging. I don't like to call them interviews because my show's format is like today you're the guest co-host. You're helping me run this show. So I want people to have two-way questioning. It's not just me asking questions and interviewing people. But it's true. Like when you have somebody on and they're not used to that format, it's fun trying to get them to talk about stuff that they're not used to from a Q&A format. It's like, no, guys, I'm not here to follow your rule book. Like I want to know you. I want my listeners to know you. And It's interesting trying to pry some of that out of people.
Yeah. And so I do the exact same thing. I like the conversation to organically go where the conversation goes, because that is stepping into that future that you don't know. It is way easier to control every factor, have a Q&A. If you don't, the chance that it might go poorly is there, it's on the table, but the chance that it might end up somewhere incredible that you could have never imagined, the conversation, that's totally worth it.
Yeah, it's awesome that way, because you and I both admit, I'm sure you could back me up. If you probably have heard other shows, because if you're a podcaster, you definitely listen to other podcasts. And
for sure.
I'm not trying to rip on other shows. I'm just saying what I don't like is what inspired me to go open format was a few times I heard somebody's show and somebody left out this zinger that if I was hosting the show and I'm like, oh dude, don't skip past that. Ask him what he just said. And they completely missed it, because you could tell they're following their standard structured format of how they run their show. And I'm like, oh my God, you missed a huge bomb that would have just rocked that episode. And then you eventually get to the point where you hear it, enough repetition, and that's when it's like, that's it. I'm launching my own show.
Yeah.
Did you ever go through some of that yourself?
Oh, for sure. And you know what's funny is you have these guests on that are very packaged, that have been in the public spotlight for a while. So if you have a bigger guest on, they have their canned answers. And so they're ready to just rattle them off. And that's what they'll do. And then when you say, hold on, let's unpack that. It's like you just slammed on the brakes going 100 and they're like, oh God, what do I?
But you know what? Let me ask you on that. Do they thank you at the end?
100%.
See, there's a difference. See, a lot of people, going back to, this is full circle back to your early point of the show, people are afraid to maybe step into the unknown or into that challenging position. They're worried about possibly upsetting, let's say, their guest co-host or their person they're interviewing. And it's like, wait a minute. The whole point is that, yes, obviously that person's probably trying to gain more exposure for their book or their brand or their business, or they just really love going on podcasts, whatever it may be. The point is that if somebody took time out of my day to get me to come on their show, I want to have fun with it as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what they're going to ask me and what they're going to challenge me with. Cause I don't want another canned response type show. And that just sounds boring as heck. So I know for every time I've actually crushed it with somebody, that's how I know if I crushed it or not. If after the show or at the end, like, by the way, dude, like, you asked me some great questions and you really took it to a different place than someone's ever taken to me on a podcast before. And I'm like, that makes me feel good. At least me anyway. So I don't know if my listeners I hope they do.
Right. Well, no, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that about this interview. In fact, but you know, what's funny is when you go on another show and they have that Q&A, but you're used to just going where you go. And then you can see them reeling. Like I've been on a few shows where I can tell they have questions. And so I'll go and I'll talk, I'll try to expand into a different area. And then they'll go back and they'll be like, well, okay, so what point did you stop playing sports?
Yeah. And that's where it's like, I think I can count on one hand a few times where I had a couple of goals. And then the one or two times I literally tried to make myself find a way to full circle that. And I was like, you know what? Let it go, man. You've never done it. Don't start doing it now. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be the weird transition. Just let the show flow. And if there's another huge section that maybe you guys should have dove into before, schedule a future show. See if they're game at the end of it. It's like, you know what? I would have loved to dig into this. You want to come back sometime and dig into that more? Can't hurt to ask. Sales 101.
Right.
Ask.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And, you know, this is, for my entire life, I found the beauty in life is outside of rigidity. Like we have these plans, right? It's like that. I don't even know the quote, but it's like you make plans and you hear God laughing. It's like all of life, everything that's good happens when you let go of the rigidity and you let go of, you know, what you think you're supposed to do and be and how you're supposed to talk. And it's like, when you just get out there and the world is happening outside of all of the lines, and you gotta be willing to see where it goes.
I made up I'm trying to remember my exact quote. All right, I can't remember exactly, but I said, you know what? The life worth living is completely outside your comfort zone. That's the point. Sure. Is like, that's when you're going to learn the most. It's going to inspire the most. It's going to create the best stories. Like my thing is this, like, what's the other line? There's another quote out there, like, he or she with the most stories or the best stories wins or something like that. One of those types of things, right? It's like, that's the point, man. That's why I love conversation. I love getting to know other people, where they come from, what was some of their adventures. That's the point of podcasting, right? I mean, you being former military, me being former fire, like we got some crazy stories. They'll come up sooner or later, right?
Yeah. It's serendipitous because on my show this morning, you know, I have a morning coffee because we do a show daily. So at least 3 times a week, it's like a short 10-minute show where I essentially will pose a quick story and then I'll pose a quick question, just something for someone to think about throughout their own life. Cool. And the question I posed today is, what is the one thing that you know that you have to do that you're not doing? And I think it's really interesting because everybody has an answer to that question. Every single human being. If you sit,
I got one right now.
Yeah, right. It comes quick.
Yeah.
And a lot of times
I need to be doing more editing on my book, and I'm not editing. I already finished writing it. I have to edit now because I'm self-publishing.
Oh, cool.
And I found that writing it was supposed to be the struggle, and now the struggle is setting the time and going in and doing the editing. It's like, dude,
Yeah. So we could talk about that after the show, actually, because I have some good, I can tell you everything not to do.
That's awesome.
But the thing is,
there's another screen share. Keep going.
But so the thing is that is the reason you're not doing that thing is almost always because it's a steep, narrow cliff with rocks below it, and you are on a paved sidewalk.
Yeah.
It is uncomfortable to go over there, but you have to if you want to get anywhere worth being.
Yeah, and I don't want to skip over this because we are coming towards the end of our time slot, but I just got done screen sharing for the audio listeners. Amazon, this will all be linked. I always backlink everything because that's Google 101. You always give your co-host as much backlinking as possible. That'll be on the livethefuel.com for his show. But Burn Your Couch is available on Amazon. So make sure you order it. I leave it at that. But that's what I'm screen sharing right now. But obviously, back to your point, you were just joking around about editing and putting the work in. Like, dude, I'm sure writing Burn Your Couch wasn't just rolled off the tongue or rolled off the keyboard as soon as you decided to write it.
No, I mean, that process, I mean, I know we're getting toward the end, so we won't get into it, but that process took me years. And it was years of me not doing the thing that I knew I needed to do. I kept denying that call to adventure. And because of that, I delayed what I really wanted to be doing in this world by years. And it was painful, and I really fought to get that out there. That book I released a year ago, essentially the idea behind that is a lot of what we're talking about, that most people mistake being comfortable for being happy. And those two things just aren't the same. But the fact that I eventually did answer that call, figure that process out. I mean, I'm literally essentially a full-time author now, and I'm in Australia writing my second book.
Oh, that's awesome.
The future you don't know is way better than you could have even imagined. But you have to do that one thing.
And usually it's the most uncomfortable thing.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been part of my book too. I didn't think. You actually had a key wording here on the back of your book. Burn Your Couch is an unapologetic manifesto, and it's funny when I made the decision to go do fire. I wasn't like, listen, this is my decision. This is my life. Yes, I love my family. I love my friends. But I'm like, guys, I have to do this, and I wasn't going to apologize for it. And then I found out, through that process, yeah, my family was worried. Some of my very close friends were very worried about me. They couldn't wait for me to get it out of my system, so to speak. And I said, well, that's great. And I love you for that. And I appreciate that. It still wouldn't have changed anything. I still would have done it.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, people want what's best for you,
Yeah. Listen, especially the people closest to you, if they've not taken some of these crazy, audacious, what is it? What is the brag, big, hairy, audacious goals? I'm forgetting the author who quoted that. I saw him on stage. I'm blanking on his name right now. But big, hairy, audacious goals. In order to set them, that comes back to your point earlier in this show. Who are the people you're surrounding yourself with? Who are the inner circles that you're allowing your manifestation to take you towards? Because setting big, hairy, audacious goals normally does not come from the old circles of influence. These comes from the new circles of influence that you're allowing into your life.
Right. I mean, I got out of the military at 12 years. Everybody says, you got to do 8 more years. The only thing I could think about is 8 years to do a job that you're unhappy with when there's an entire life you want to be doing.
And you've already served, man. You've already put in your time.
Yeah. Well, first of all, that's ridiculous. Like, nobody should do anything they don't want to do for 8 years. But because it's a military and you get a retirement, But what I found is that the people that are giving me that advice weren't necessarily very happy with their own path.
Mm-hmm.
But all they're doing is projecting what they know, and they want what's best for you. It's not malicious. Like, the world's not against you. People are just for themselves. And in fact, they just probably have a misguided idea about what you're capable of because they didn't work capable of it in their own life. Yeah. And so they're going to project that on you, and you're going to get a bunch of that, but you got to stay true. You got to honor the process.
I back you 110%. I mean, it's funny how things manifest differently in your life. Like, yes, I might be some quote, settled down more. But I haven't stopped doing a lot of the things that I learned thanks to that lifestyle shift of burning my couch or literally getting rid of my house and getting rid of the nice car. Like, I still have my North Face, the backstrap packed, the big base camp duffel bags. Those things are amazing. I talk about gear hacks all the time too. I know you're kind of the same way. And I still have every single size in my garage, and I still have stuff in them because I don't want to unpack. I have a mountaineering pack dedicated to my rock climbing gear. I have a mountaineering pack dedicated to my camping gear. And then I have a North Face base camp duffel bag just for my ski gear, one for my mountain biking gear. Like, it's actually very organized because I'm a little anal retentive. But the point is, that was my life while I was bouncing around the country, because I only fought fire for 6 months out of the year, because that's the hottest part of the year is the summer. But we did 2,000 hours in 6 months. Like that's a normal 9 to 5er's full year of employment. So we were pretty beat up and tired. So what do you think I did? I traveled, dude. I went rock climbing. I flew to Ireland and backpacked Ireland because I didn't backpack enough. Let's go backpack Ireland. But hey, I was fit. But the point is that live your life, man. Take the journey. And you'd be surprised what stays with you. I'm still obsessed with minimalism. And I don't like it's weird having books because I switched everything to digital. But then some authors aren't doing audiobooks, which drives me nuts. I'm like, please launch on Audible. Is this on Audible?
Dude, it's.
Did I call you out? I'm sorry.
No, I just finished recording it. I literally yesterday.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's miserable. Yeah, it's a ridiculous process. The next one, the next book I release, the audio book will release with it.
Did you do your own voiceover?
Yes.
Good. I got people trying to tell me not to do that. I'm like, dude, I'm a podcaster. I love when authors speak their own book because then it just comes across better. You can tell that you've lived that story.
Same. Yep. I would love to have not done it because it was a lot of work, but yeah, I got to stay true. Like that's another thing. I listen to audiobooks when it's the author. And so it's like, okay, man, you know,
I've listened to a few with the professional voiceover people. I don't get the same high out of it. Especially, man, there's some great books like former Navy SEAL guys or stories of Navy SEALs. I love those books. Oh my God. I'm blanking on the one right now that was awesome a few months ago. Like I was crying at one point listening to this story. That's how good it was. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Something Fearless.
Oh, Fearless. Yeah. That's
right.
That was that Adam Brown. Story. Yeah. Adam
Brown's story. Holy crap, dude. That I listened to that twice. So
yeah.
And I have the physical book, but I crush content digitally. So
no, his story is incredible. Yeah, I mean that's a good question to ask yourself right now for people listening to this. Like, is your story going to be worth telling?
Yeah, but again, you don't know until you put it out there.
Yeah, and you know what the thing is too. When you go after something you want, you inevitably find out that there are some things that you like the idea of more than you actually like, and that's just as powerful because when you find out what you don't want, you're more positioned to find out what you do want, and so that's not going to bounce around in your head as a could have or should have or maybe if for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
you know, I spent a couple of years growing up. I wanted to be a rock star my whole life. I spent a couple of years playing in the music industry, and we weren't huge, but we had like a local song on the radio, and we opened for some bands that I liked, and we played around. I literally got to feel like I realized that I did not want to do that for the rest of my life. That I wasn't willing to even put in the work. I didn't like the industry. There were a lot of things. I loved the idea of being a rock star. I did not like trying to be one. Super important. I no longer have to wonder what it would have been like.
But here's the funny thing. You've realized that, and then you just helped us understand you're becoming more of a full-time author, and you just admitted that you went through hell doing your audio version of your book, but I didn't hear you say, I'm never going to do that again.
No, I'm going to do it again in 2 months.
Exactly. So this still sucks, the amount of work that you have to put into it, but this is fueling your fire. That's what I like hearing from that, right? Okay, You're not meant to be the rock star, but you're willing to put in the work, the struggle, the sweat, the tears, the strain of your audio vocals to put out books and put those stories out there. So that's pretty powerful. That
was an amazing tie-in to your show.
Yeah, try to.
That was great.
It helps having a good co-host.
Well, it's true though. I mean, I said it already, I think throughout the show, but we're always looking for these. How can we be a better performer? Like, where's the hack? Where's the biohack? How can we feel better? How can we achieve more? Do the thing that you feel called to do in the world. And it will be the biggest performance hack you could ever imagine. Because like I said, all the hustle, all the grind, those all become byproducts. There's no question in my mind that I'm not going to rack myself over the keyboard and that I'm not going to record the next audiobook because I love what I'm doing.
It's still going to be hard work. The only difference is you're not actually completely hating it.
Yeah, you're going to want to do it.
And then you're like, oh, dude, that sucked. But like every fire I was on, it sucked, but I was looking forward to go back on the next fire. Right. Yeah. And then after 2 years, I realized, okay.
Until you're not.
Now it's losing some of the appeal.
Right.
So, well, listen, this has been an awesome show. As Megan hinted, I knew you'd rock the mic. there's something special that I ask of all of my guest co-hosts, and you're being a fellow podcast, you'd be fine with it. And I love all your performance and your endurance, and the author story transformation is powerful. I'm loving the fact you're dialing in with us from Australia. So I ask that you help close a show out. Is there some final words that you would like to leave behind to our audience in case they forget everything else we shared today and all the websites, which again, everything will be on livethefuel.com. But is there any final words you're trying to put out there with your manifesto or your mission or your statement in life?
I will close it. I'm going to close it with a Carl Jung quote. And it wasn't the quote I gave you at the beginning of the show.
Okay.
But until you make the subconscious conscious, it's going to rule your life and you're going to call it fate. And I think there's no more worthy ideal than figuring out who you really want to be and what you really are. And I know I've been talking about it throughout this whole show. But until you do that, everything else won't matter. You'll put your energy in the wrong place. You'll be in the wrong relationships. You'll do the wrong job. And not necessarily every single aspect of your life. Like you might love your job or you might love your relationship. I'm not advocating for burning the ships completely. But all I'm saying is once you get in touch with what you really want and who you really want to be in this world, you'll find that it's a much better life, because every single person that's doing the quote unquote thing that you look up to, all of the pro athletes, all of the rock stars, all of the podcasters and authors, they're just waking up and making it up just like you are, except they're making it up within what they really want to do. There's no secret to this life. It's just do the things you want to do and then work backward from there. But if you don't do that, if you don't know what that thing is, you're going to miss the mark every time. Dude,
I love that. Well, listen, hang tight. We'll probably goodbye off the air. Ladies and gentlemen, I dropped it multiple times in the show, but again, check them out at rickalexander.com. But definitely pop a little subscription over to LionHeart Radio. And again, that's lionheartrad.io for the URL if you want to visit the site. And again, it's the holiday season. I think people need some more books to inspire them. You might want to check out Burn Your Couch. It's on Amazon. All right. So thanks for tuning in to another definitely fired up Live the Fuel podcast show. And again, Rick Alexander rocked the mic with us today. So again, check out his show. Do him some respect. Please share. If it doesn't fit you, but you think it's going to fit somebody else, share his show with somebody else, just like you do with my show. But again, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to fuel your health, your business, your lifestyle. Thanks for tuning in. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Later, gang.